Today, I'm taking you inside Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park, one of the most fascinating cemeteries in Los Angeles. It's a small, quiet, and almost hidden place, but some of the names here are massive, and you can find all kinds of movie stars and people whose stories are still surrounded by fame, tragedy, and mystery. So the first name that caught my attention was Don Knotts. You see, Don Knotts was someone who didn't need big stunts to make people laugh. He had this nervous look, a shaky face, and honestly, pure awkward energy. Most people remember him for the Andy Griffith Show. He played a deputy sheriff who was only trusted with one bullet at a time. And that role alone made him a television legend and earned him 5 Emmy Awards. Don Knotts died in Los Angeles in 2006 at 81. He made anxiety funny, awkwardness lovable, and panic unforgettable. Now, the deeper you go into this place, the stranger Hollywood starts to feel. And here's where I found Dean Martin. Dean Martin was one of those who made everything look effortless. He could do everything. He could sing, act, joke, and command a room without ever looking like he was trying. In the 40s and 50s, he became one half of the legendary comedy duo Martin and Lewis. He also hosted the Dean Martin Show for years, where his whole charm was making it seem like he was just winging it. Dean Martin sadly died on Christmas Day in 1995 at 78. Next, we have Jack Lemmon. Jack Lemmon became famous playing ordinary people who felt awkward, nervous, or completely overwhelmed by life. But that's exactly what made him so relatable. He could go from pure comedy to heartbreaking drama better than almost anyone in Hollywood. Most people remember him from classics like Some Like It Hot, The Apartment, and The Odd Couple. He also became the first actor to win an Oscar, both for Best Supporting Actor and Best Actor at the same time.
You're a guy, and why would a guy want to marry a guy? Security!
Jack Lemmon died in Los Angeles in 2001 at 76. Even his gravestone stayed simple. It just says Jack Lemmon in, like it's one of his movies. Then I found Eva Gabor. Eva Gabor, she brought a very specific kind of glamour to American television. She was elegant, dramatic, and even funny without trying too hard. She became iconic as Lisa Douglas in Green Acres.
Well, when you married me, you knew that I couldn't cook, I couldn't sew, and I couldn't keep house.
But Eva wasn't just a TV star. She also gave her voice to Disney characters like Duchess in The Aristocrats. And I think the most popular one was Miss Bianca in The Rescuers. Eva Gabor died in Los Angeles in 1995 at 76. Okay, now with this one, it feels like we're almost jumping into Hollywood royalty. And that is because I found Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas felt larger than life. With that famous chin dimple, he became one of the last true giants of old Hollywood. His most iconic role was Spartacus, but one of his biggest moments happened behind the scenes when he helped break the Hollywood blacklist by giving screenwriter Dalton Trumbo credit for the film. Kirk also built a career playing complicated, powerful men, from Champion to Lust for Life, and even after a helicopter crash in a major stroke, he kept writing and pushing forward. Kirk Douglas died in Beverly Hills in 2020. He was 103 years old. That is insane! He practically lived long enough to feel like a bridge between classic Hollywood and today. Next, what I found was pretty much an angel. Because Farrah Fawcett, she became one of the defining faces of the 1970s because of this. With Charlie's Angels, her blonde hair, her smile, and that iconic red swimsuit poster, she turned into a cultural phenomenon almost overnight. But Farrah also spent years trying to prove she was more than just an image. She took on darker, more serious roles in projects like The Burning Bed and Extremities, earning respect as a dramatic actress. She also documented her own battle with cancer in Farrah's story, using something so deeply painful to raise awareness. Farrah Fawcett died in Santa Monica in 2009 at 62. And eventually, her story became tied forever to another Hollywood star buried here too. And I'm talking about Ryan O'Neal. You know, Ryan O'Neal became the face of a tragic romance in the 1970s. His breakout role was Love Story, the movie that made him a worldwide star and gave cinema one of its most famous lines.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
You know, my mother used that one a lot. But he wasn't just a romantic lead. He worked with directors like Stanley Kubrick in Barry Lyndon, starred with Barbra Streisand in What's Up, Doc, and acted alongside his daughter Tatum O'Neal in Paper Moon. Off-screen, his life was just as famous because of his long, complicated relationship with Farrah Fawcett. Ryan O'Neal died in 2023 at 82. And in a very strange Hollywood ending, he now rests near Farrah. Now, moving on, I found Bettie Page. And you might remember her because she was one of the most recognizable pinup models of the 1950s. The black bangs, the smile, the confidence. Her image felt playful, rebellious, and completely unforgettable. She was photographed constantly and became one of Playboy's early playmates, helping define a whole era of pinup and underground style. But sadly, at the peak of her fame, Betty suddenly walked away from modeling in 1957 and disappeared for decades. That mystery only made her legend bigger. Bettie Page died in Los Angeles in 2008 at 85. As you can see, today is a very beautiful day in Los Angeles. Very sunny. It is crazy how many people come and visit this cemetery. Because I've visited other cemeteries before, and this is the one I've seen being visited the most, let's say. Okay, now we're jumping into a very modern but sad story. And I'm talking about Jason Philip Davis. And a lot of people might not know his face, but they probably heard his voice. And I know I do, because he played Mikey Bloomberg in Disney's Recess. Jason also came from a powerful Hollywood family, as he was the grandson of billionaire Marvin Davis, who once owned 20th Century Fox. But later, his struggles became very public, especially through Celebrity Rehab, where he spoke openly about addiction. Jason Davis died in Los Angeles in 2020 at only 35. He died from an accidental fentanyl overdose. And this one is way more sad, and I find it even more tragic. And I'm talking about Heather O'Rourke. You know, Heather O'Rourke, she became unforgettable with just one scene in Poltergeist. Standing in front of a television full of static, she quietly said, "They're here," and instantly became part of horror movie history. You know, Steven Spielberg discovered her when she was only 5 years old, and she quickly became the emotional center of the Poltergeist films. Her dad, at just 12 years old, because she was only 12 years old when she died. Well, that fueled rumors about the so-called poltergeist curse, especially after other tragedies also happened, connected to the cast. But behind the urban legends, she was just a girl. I mean, she was just a young actress who people remembered as incredibly kind and talented. Heather O'Rourke died in 1988 from complications caused by a congenital intestinal condition that had been misdiagnosed. But now we have a huge name. Sorry about the pun, but we literally have Hugh Hefner. You know, Hugh Hefner, the creator of Playboy, and one of the most recognizable brands in pop culture. It was a little fascinating because over the years, Playboy became controversial, influential, glamorous, and criticized all at once. And that is because Hefner also built the Playboy mansion into a symbol of Hollywood excess. He died in Los Angeles in 2017 at 91. And he paid a lot of money, oh my god, so much money, to be buried next to the woman I'm about to talk to you about. And as I was walking through the cemetery, so many people came and went just to say hi to her and leave. Have a little peek of her and then leave. And I'm talking about the legendary Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe wasn't just a movie star. She became the image of Hollywood itself. Born Norma Jean, she went from a difficult childhood in California to becoming one of the most photographed women in the world. Movies like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, The 7-Year Itch, and Some Like It Hot turned her into an icon. But Marilyn spent years fighting to be seen as more than just the blonde bombshell. She studied acting, started her own production company, and tried super hard to take control of an image the world had already claimed. But behind the fame, her life was lonely, complicated, and constantly watched. Sadly, Marilyn died in Los Angeles in 1962. She was super young, she was only 36. Her death was ruled as a probable suicide from an overdose, but the mystery around that night never really disappeared. And maybe that's why people still come here. Not just because she was beautiful, but because Marilyn Monroe became the kind of legend Hollywood never lets go. Visiting places like this reminds you that behind the fame, there were real people with complicated, unforgettable lives. Hollywood turned them into legends, but here, they finally rest in silence. Out of all these stories, which one stayed with you the most? Thanks for watching this video. My name is Zuri, and I'll see you in the next video.